Right, we got 7 major Apple news to talk about. The first 3 are Apple Watch related, hence the title of this video, and then the other 4 are about the headsets, about WWDC, and even about some iPhone 16 leaks. But before that, if you need any freelancer work done, Fiverr is the place to go. For example, you can get a logo designed for something like $10. You can get coding help and pretty much anything that you can think of for some great prices. I've been using it for years and I love it. Use the link below to check Fiverr out. Okay, now back to the Apple Watch. First of all, we now have specific details about the Apple Watch Series 9 chip, which was rumored to be a brand new chip for the first time since the Series 6 chip in 2020, but we had no specific details as to what this chip might bring new to the table. In our previous Apple Watch video, I theorized that it could be based on a smaller 5nm manufacturing process from the current 7nm. And this is because the iPhone is said to be switching to 3nm this year, and when the iPhone switched to 5 in 2020, that was also when the Apple Watch switched to 7. So the Apple Watch has always been one generation behind. Now, that was just my theory. However, Mark Gurman has now stated that not only will the Apple Watch's 9 chip be based on a 5nm process, but that it will also be based on the Apple A15 chip. Now, the A15 chip was Apple's second-gen 5nm process chip, and it used TSMC's N5P node rather than the N5 that the 5nm A14 used. What this resulted in was even more optimization that further improved the power efficiency. What this means for the Apple Watch is that we could see a significant battery life improvement. Just as an idea, if we compare the iPhone 11 Pro to the 13 Pro, even though Apple kept almost the same battery size, the 13 Pro had a 4-hour longer battery for video playback and a 10-hour longer battery for audio playback. And again, this was simply thanks to the A15 chip being manufactured on TSMC's second-gen 5nm N5P node as opposed to the older 5nm chip inside the iPhone 11 Pro. And the best part is that we could see these major battery life gains in not just the Series 9, but the second-gen Apple Watch Ultra 2, as this would also feature the new S9 chip. Okay, second piece of Apple news, watchOS 10 widgets. So, you know how watchOS 10 has been rumored to be the Apple Watch's biggest software update since the very first Apple Watch? Well, aside from a redesigned home screen with folders that we went over in our previous video, we didn't really have any news as to what the other changes might be. Well, now we do. As according to Mark Gurman, Apple will be introducing on-screen widgets to the Apple Watch, which will apparently be a central part of the Apple Watch's interface with watchOS 10. Okay, so on paper this sounds pretty cool, but in reality, I'm really not sure how I feel about it. You see, the Apple Watch has a really small display, and this is why Apple designs the complications to work kind of like widgets do on iOS, as in they show you plenty of info at a glance. Adding the iOS-style widgets to watchOS would simply take up way too much screen space for something that wouldn't necessarily offer you more info than the complications. Not only that, but iOS widgets are in full color, which wouldn't be the best approach for the Apple Watch, which mostly uses black elements in order to keep its power consumption at a minimum. So, I don't know, something about widgets does make me feel like Apple's simply trying to fix something that was never broken in the first place. Unless, of course, Apple adds widgets not to the watch faces, but to the app screen instead. Parker from Vox Media made a concept of how this could look like, and I can actually see this working. You'd still have your regular watch faces just like now, but then instead of the messy ocean of apps, you would simply have this scrollable grid with widgets as well as the potential folders that we saw in the previous leak, and this could allow you to have multiple app pages and customize them however you like. Now that would indeed be something that I would definitely prefer over the current layout. And the third piece of Apple Watch updates is that more and more developers are closing down their Apple Watch apps. Not that long ago, we lost Twitter for the Apple Watch, we also lost Instagram, Slack, and even Uber. And now it seems like we're losing Facebook Messenger as well. This is just bad, as unlike Wear OS, where you can respond to notifications directly from them, on the Apple Watch, if you want to respond to, let's say, a Messenger message, you can only do so via the app. And same with Uber. With the Uber app before, you could simply use it to call an Uber from your watch. But now, you just get the notification from your iPhone and you cannot do anything with that. So I'm not really sure why developers keep removing their apps from the Apple Watch, but if I could take a guess, I'd probably say it has something to do with maybe an extremely low user base, as most people simply use their Apple Watches for health tracking and notifications, and you don't really need any third-party apps for those. Who knows, maybe this new widget system would make developers want to make apps again. Okay, next up we have some iPhone updates. So display analyst Ross Young claims that Apple will be increasing the screen size with the 2024 iPhone 16s to 6.3 inches from 6.1 on the 16 Pro, and to 6.9 inches from 6.7 on the iPhone 16 Pro Max. Now, I don't really know how I feel about this. On one hand, I am quite happy that the iPhone 16 Pro is getting bigger, as this will allow for more internal space. Space that, according to Ming-Chi Kuo, would be used to bring the periscope module to the iPhone 16 Pro as well, rather than just the Pro Max. But on the other hand, I do believe that the 6.9-inch iPhone 16 Pro Max would be just way too big. I always found the 12 Pro Max, 13 Pro Max, and 14 Pro Max to be very uncomfortable to use due to how wide they were and how sharp the edges also were. And even though the edges are getting smoother with the 15s, I don't think that would be enough to make the 6.9-inch display usable the following year. But hey, it does seem like the display size increase is happening. In fact, Ming-Chi Kuo seems to agree with Ross Young on this. Next up, Digitime claims that Apple will be adding micro LED displays onto the iPhone. Now, this will only happen after the Apple Watch Ultra adopts micro LED, which is only rumored to be in 2025, so yeah, 2026 and later is when we'll likely see this happening. To be honest, I wouldn't even call this a rumor, it's just the obvious next step after OLED, and it's just a matter of time until this technology matures enough to come to the iPhone. And really, the main advantage here would just be the brightness. Micro LED would be able to go significantly brighter to numbers like 5,000 to 10,000 nits and even higher, making the iPhone's display just as visible outdoors as it is indoors. Okay, some quick updates on the headset. So June seems to be when we'll see it fully unveiled, not just in terms of the software, but also in terms of the hardware. Oh, and speaking of the software, the XR name has now been trademarked in visible official documents. So yeah, the WWDC launch is getting closer and closer. Oh, and according to a Wall Street Journal report, Apple employees who have already tried the headset were blown away by the results and said that it offers great levels of performance and immersion that far exceed the capabilities of the competition, like the Meta Quest Pro. Of course, that with a starting price of $3,000, you would definitely expect it to surpass all of its competitors, but we'll see. Like, I'm really excited to try it out, but at the same time, I do feel like if the price is going to be $3,000 indeed, obviously not a lot of people would buy it. And if not a lot of people buy it, then developers wouldn't be that enticed to make apps for it. And if developers don't make apps for it, then less and less people would be enticed to buy it, therefore dooming the whole product. Speaking of apps, according to Mark Gurman, the headset will be able to run iPadOS apps, and it could even run Final Cut Pro and Logic in the future, the iPadOS version of them. And speaking of that, I do have some thoughts on them. In case you missed it, last week Apple released Final Cut Pro and Logic Pro for the iPad, which is a pretty big deal as they have both been requested by users for a couple of years now. And they both seem very capable, with Final Cut even supporting third-party plugins and most of the features of the macOS version. The only catch is that they don't quite get every feature, like you don't get advanced color grading and object tracking alongside others, and they both require a monthly subscription. And even though that's quite controversial, I do think that it is for the best. Final Cut Pro for the Mac costs $300 as a one-time purchase. Now, when was the last time you spent $300 on an iOS app, right? Probably never. So for iOS and iPadOS in this case, you need a more affordable entry, which is what that $5 monthly subscription is for. At the end of the day, these versions of the apps are perfect for beginners and those who want to get a video project done without having to spend hundreds. But yeah, these were all the big Apple updates. Do subscribe and hit the bell icon if you want to see more Leaks Rumors episodes in the future. I'm Daniel, this is ZONEofTECH, and I'll see you guys in the next one. ZONEofTECH, signing out. Cheers.